John never imagined his married life would hit a dead end like this. After tying the knot with Emma, they had lived together for 3 years, all the while waiting for the day she'd get pregnant. But time passed, and nothing happened. The pressure only grew worse when their parents started asking the same dreaded question over and over again. Hey, when are y'all finally gonna give us grandkids? We want to keep the family line going, you know? It'd be nice to spoil some little ones, buy them toys. Emma and John wanted to have kids just as much as their parents wanted grandkids. They were both ready for that next step, but with every passing month, hope began to fade. One day, Emma suggested something neither of them had really talked about. John, maybe it's time you get checked out. I went to the doctor, and they said everything's fine with me, that I can have kids. John didn't really buy into the idea, but after some thought, he agreed. All right, if it'll put our minds at ease, I'll do it. The results hit like a brick to the gut. After a few tests, the doctors came back with a bombshell diagnosis: infertile. John was crushed. His ego took a heavy hit. It just didn't make sense to him. How can this be? He muttered to himself, trying to wrap his head around it. My parents had 2 kids, and now they're telling me I won't have any? No way. Emma, I don't trust those doctors. I'm going to another hospital, a private clinic this time. I've got a contact. He forked out a hefty sum for the private clinic's tests, but despite the money spent, the outcome was the same. Nothing had changed. He came home that day, and Emma was waiting on him, nerves all over the place. So, what did they say, John? She asked, practically running to meet him as he walked through the door. Same news, he said flatly, his voice drained of all hope. As time moved forward, both sets of parents learned about John's condition. And while they didn't say much, the tension between him and Emma grew. She became distant, cold even, and John couldn't help but notice. He knew what was happening. Their marriage was slowly unraveling, but there wasn't a damn thing he could do to stop it. John never saw it coming. Well, deep down, he knew it could happen, but it was one of those things you just don't want to believe. He came home from work, minding his business like any other day, and bam, there she was, looking at him with that cold, emotionless expression on her face. John, I'm filing for divorce. I need a kid, and you can't give me one. So, yeah, that's pretty much the reason, Emma said, cutting straight to the chase. John felt a knot in his stomach, but a part of him knew this was inevitable. Emma wasn't the kind of woman who'd be okay with living childless. Hell, he'd known for a while now that in their relationship, he was the one doing all the loving. She, on the other hand, just tolerated him. If he was being honest with himself, Emma didn't marry him out of love. She had it all planned out from the start. His parents had money, and his dad was a big-shot businessman. John worked for his dad, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before his father handed him his own company. Emma had it all figured out. Her plan was simple: marry John, let him get his business, have a baby, then divorce him and take half of everything. Easy as pie. But life threw a wrench in her perfect scheme when they found out John couldn't have kids. That hit her hard, and it wasn't long before things started to unravel. What made things worse was Henry. He had been in Emma's life long before John, but back then, Henry was married. Now, he was in the middle of his own divorce, and every time he and Emma met, he kept pushing her to leave John. Emma, what are you still doing with that guy? Dude can't even give you a kid. I'm getting divorced too, babe. Don't sit around waiting for his old man to hand him a business. Let's bounce to New York. We'll start something there. Emma didn't even flinch at the thought of leaving John. She already knew what her future looked like, and it wasn't with him. She figured she'd eventually have Henry's baby because, well, he already had a kid. So at least she knew it was possible with him. John lifted his gaze slowly, feeling the weight of Emma's words sink into his chest. It was like hearing the inevitable crash you've been dreading, yet somehow, you brace yourself for the impact anyway. With a steady breath, he looked her in the eyes and said calmly, All right, Emma, if that's what you want, let's do it. We'll get divorced. I get it. With that, he turned and walked into the bedroom, leaving her standing there, maybe a little thrown off by how coolly he took it. Inside, though, he was a mess. The divorce went through quickly, faster than he thought, and soon after, Emma packed up and moved to New York with Henry, leaving John behind. A few months passed, and one day, John ran into his ex-mother-in-law on the street. She gave him that smug look and couldn't resist rubbing salt in the wound. Well, John, just so you know, Emma's pregnant. Finally found herself a real man. Henry's way better than you ever were. Her words hit hard, but John kept his poker face, nodding and walking away. His parents were equally disappointed, knowing they wouldn't have any grandkids from him. Sure, His little sister was getting married soon, and she'd have kids, but they wouldn't carry the family name. 3 years flew by, and John's life took a whole new turn. He had his own business now, and it was doing well. He spent most of his time working, throwing himself into the grind. But one evening, while he was celebrating a sweet deal with two of his buddies at a cozy cafe, something caught his eye. Or rather, someone. Across the room, sitting at a small table with her friend, was this girl with dark hair and these stunning blue eyes. They'd locked eyes a few times, and John could feel a spark, something magnetic between them. The girls were sipping on some non-alcoholic drinks, chatting softly, but John couldn't take his eyes off her. Man, she's gorgeous, he thought, noticing how her soft smile lit up her face. His friends were cracking jokes, but John's mind was elsewhere. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and decided to make his move. "Hey, good evening," he said as he walked over. "What's the occasion?" Both girls looked up, grinning. "Oh, nothing much. We just bumped into each other and thought we'd catch up," said the friend. "I'm John, by the way. What's your name?" "I'm Elizabeth, and this is Nika," said the dark-haired beauty, her cheeks flushing a little as she gave him a shy smile. John couldn't get Nika out of his head. The more time he spent with her, the more he felt this magnetic pull. Something real, something deeper than just casual flirting. So, when he offered to drive her and Elizabeth home, he wasn't surprised when they both agreed without hesitation. The ride was full of light laughter and easy conversation, and before they knew it, they had already dropped off Elizabeth at her place. Now it was just him and Nika. The vibe shifted, the silence between them now feeling more loaded with anticipation. As they pulled up to her apartment building, John hesitated for a moment before nervously asking, "I hope we can hang out again sometime. Maybe we could trade numbers?" He wasn't really sure what to expect, but then Nika flashed him that killer smile, the one that had him hooked from the start. "Yeah, sure. Why not?" She said so casually, like it was no big deal, but to him, it meant everything. She waved goodbye and disappeared into her building, leaving John sitting in his car, staring after her, a little bit in shock that this was actually happening. Over the next few days, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Nika was in his mind constantly, at work, when he was out with friends, even when he was home trying to relax. It was like she had taken over every thought. He realized he was falling hard for her. She was a few years younger than him, had just graduated college and started a new job. But despite the age difference, John knew they were a perfect match. He could feel it in his bones, and he was sure she felt the same way too. But then there was this one thing. This huge, looming secret that he couldn't shake. His infertility. He couldn't lie to her, but he wasn't sure how to break it to her either. Weeks passed, and Nika started dropping hints about marriage, waiting for him to pop the question. She was practically expecting it, but John kept holding back. Finally, Nika couldn't take it anymore and decided to confront him. "John, why haven't you asked me to marry you yet? We're perfect together. I can feel it. I know you love me, but something's stopping you. Is it because of your divorce?" John froze for a second, took a deep breath, and finally told her the truth. "Nika, I love you, more than you know. But there's something I need to tell you. The reason I haven't proposed yet is because I can't have kids. I've been to the doctors, and they confirmed it. That's why my ex-wife and I split up. Now that you know, it's your choice. I'd love to marry you, but I don't want you to regret it later." Nika's heart sank as she processed his words. She thought long and hard about it, and while the thought of not having kids was tough, she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't imagine life without John. Their love was something otherworldly, and nothing could change that. Nika couldn't shake the thought that she would never meet another man like John. The way they connected, the depth of their love. It was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal, and she knew it. True love like this was rare, and she felt lucky just to have found it. "I've thought about it a lot, and I think we should get married," she said calmly but confidently, looking straight into his eyes. Her voice was steady, but there was warmth in it too. "I've made up my mind. Look, even if we can't have kids, we can always adopt. And, well, science is moving fast these days." John was stunned, completely taken aback by her words, but in the best way possible. He had been thinking about their future, too, and hearing her talk about it so openly made his heart swell with happiness. "Nika, you're a damn miracle. Where did you even come from?" John said with a grin, joy lighting up his face. He had been through a lot, but with Nika by his side, he felt like they could handle anything. Their wedding was nothing short of spectacular, a real showstopper. The decor was lavish, the food was top-notch, and their friends and family surrounded them with love and laughter. They were the picture of happiness, radiant and in love. After the wedding, they moved into a brand new apartment, a gift from John's parents. It was spacious, stylish, and the perfect place to start their new life together. 2 years flew by in the blink of an eye. They had just returned from an incredible vacation in the Maldives, where they soaked up the sun and enjoyed some much-needed relaxation. Life was good. But one morning, Nika woke up feeling off. She felt weak, dizzy, and her face had gone pale. "What's wrong, babe?" "I'll get you some water," John said, panic in his voice. But before he could move, Nika bolted to the bathroom, clutching her stomach. "I must have eaten something bad," she mumbled after a while, but the uneasy feeling didn't go away. Concerned, Nika decided to go to the doctor. After a quick checkup, the therapist referred her to a gynecologist. When Nika stepped out of the office later that day, her mind was racing. She couldn't believe what the doctor had told her. She was pregnant. Her emotions were all over the place. Confusion, excitement, disbelief. How could this be? That evening, she struggled to find the right way to break the news to John. "John, I don't even know how to tell you this, but we're having a baby," she finally said, her voice soft but steady. "Nika, what are you talking about? That's impossible. I mean, we both know I can't have kids," he said, his face frozen in shock. "No, it's real." The doctor confirmed it, and I couldn't believe it either. "But it's true," she said, smiling nervously, but John's eyes were filled with suspicion and doubt. Thoughts whirled in his head, faster than he could process. Could she have cheated on him? Would she really do something like that, just to have a child? Nika, on the other hand, was riding high on pure happiness. She had no clue about the storm brewing inside John's mind. For her, life was just about perfect, a baby on the way, and their relationship still strong. They had decided to keep everything hush-hush, not telling anyone, not even their families. They wanted the birth to be a surprise for everyone. As the months rolled by, they kept their distance from relatives, keeping the big news under wraps. John, meanwhile, had finally come to terms with everything. He was almost sure that Nika couldn't have cheated on him. The way she looked at him, the way she loved him, it was too real. But even though he was nearly convinced, that nagging doubt was still there, eating away at him from time to time. The day came, and John proudly drove Nika and their newborn son home from the hospital. It was only then that he broke the news to his parents about their new grandson. Nika's mom was overwhelmed with emotion and immediately burst into tears. "I knew it. I always knew those doctors were wrong. They messed up. Congratulations, John, and thank you for giving us this beautiful grandson," she said, her voice cracking with joy. John's parents, however, reacted very differently. While his father was all smiles and support, his mother was a different story. She crossed her arms, her face cold as ice, and sneered. "So, your wife went out and had some other man's baby, and you're just happy about it? What's there to celebrate? We need to figure out whose kid this really is. You need to get a test done," she said, her voice dripping with suspicion. John felt a chill crawl down his spine, even though he tried not to show it. He loved Nika deeply and didn't want to believe that his mother could be right. He defended his wife, standing firm. "Mom, stop. I trust Nika just like I trust myself. She wouldn't do that to me," he said, trying to sound confident, but his mother's words had already planted a seed of doubt deep in his mind. But things were about to get worse. One afternoon, while John was at work, his mother stormed over to Nika's place. She wasn't holding back, pounding on the door and screaming at the top of her lungs. "Open up, or I'll break this damn door down." Nika hurried to open it, but the moment she did, her mother-in-law barged in, her face twisted with fury. "Get out. Get the hell out of here. Take your baby and get lost. Don't you dare come near my son again, you cheating tramp." She spat the words like venom. "Go back to whatever loser you hooked up with, 'cause that's whose kid this is." Nika was stunned, her eyes filling with tears as she stood there in shock. How had things come to this? Just days ago, everything seemed so perfect, and now her world was crashing down around her. Nika didn't say a word, her throat tight with tears she couldn't hold back anymore. The tears did the talking for her. She stood there, clutching little Jimmy to her chest, feeling the deep sting of betrayal that her own family, the people closest to her, couldn't believe in her loyalty. Her mother-in-law, like a raging storm, slammed the door on her way out, and that sound echoed through Nika's heart, shattering it into 1,000 tiny pieces. That evening, when John got home, he tried to talk her down, begging her to forgive his mom. But Nika was already firm in her decision, her eyes burning with determination. "I'm gonna do a DNA test," she said, her voice shaky but steady with resolve. And when the results come back, your mother will feel ashamed. You too, John. I can feel it. You don't trust me completely either. Don't you see? This is your son. I couldn't have cheated on you. John stayed silent, but his silence spoke volumes. Nika could see the doubt still flickering in his eyes. It was like poison, slowly eating away at her. The pain of his distrust was almost unbearable, and she even started thinking about packing her bags and leaving to go stay with her mom. But traveling with a newborn wasn't easy. It would take planning, and right now, she wasn't sure she could handle that. When the DNA test finally came back, it confirmed what Nika had known all along. Jimmy was John's biological son. John sat there, staring at the numbers, tears rolling down his face. Nika had never seen him like that before, so broken, so vulnerable. But at the same time, there was this glow in his eyes, a new light shining through the pain. "I'm so sorry, babe," John said, his voice cracking with emotion. "Nika, I was so blind. Now I see. It was a mistake, a medical error. These things happen. Thank God everything turned out okay. You've made me the happiest man in the whole universe. Please forgive me, Nika. And forgive me, my son." Nika couldn't stay mad at John. She knew it wasn't his fault. The doctors had convinced him he couldn't have kids, and it had messed with his head. It wasn't a failure of nature. It was a failure of science, a mistake in medicine. The next day, John's parents showed up with gifts for baby Jimmy. His dad was over the moon, having never doubted Nika for a second. His mom, though, was feeling the weight of her guilt. She approached Nika slowly, eyes downcast, and quietly said, "I'm so sorry, sweetie, for everything I said. Please forgive me. Can I hold my grandson? I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make it up to you, to make you forget my mistrust. I know I hurt you deeply." Finally, everything was falling into place. Little Arcee, the tiny troublemaker who had unknowingly stirred up so much drama, was smiling and making funny faces at everyone. He had no idea what his parents had gone through just to bring him into this world.